Welcome to Dave Examines Movies and TV. Today I examine the latest film in Disney Animation's ever-growing surplus of films. It's Moana. What mysteries are found beyond the boundaries of this dying island? Will Moana find the heart of the ocean? Hey, I'm Dave, and I created DaveExaminesMovies.com. I've been reviewing movies for over 10 years, and I believe I've discovered the ultimate method for reviewing film. I've always used a 1 out of 100 star rating, but somehow that was still too biased and inaccurate for my taste. I wanted something so unquestionable that even if you hated something that I loved, you could appreciate my logic, and I found it. I call it Interpreting the Stars, which splits a movie into 10 categories, 5 solid categories that fit any film, and 5 specialty categories created specifically for the movie at hand. The first 5 categories are people, writing, behind the scenes, narrative arc, and overall entertainment. Each of these categories will have 5 subcategories of their own that ultimately define the star rating of the film. You'll no longer have to ask why a film's rated 76% versus 77. You'll now know what each and every star represents. This is Dave Examines Movies and TV. Well, how's it going, everybody? How's everybody's Friday? TGIF. Pretty good. Awesome. I'm recording this an hour early today. Why? Well, because I can, and because I felt like it. Now, actually, more like today's kind of inching along towards Easter Sunday, and so I have some plans later on, so more along the lines of when I would normally record this, my plans would be set. So I'm going to record this a little bit easier, or earlier, just so it's easier on me to get stuff ready later on. Sounds good? Sounds good. Okay, so today we're finishing off with the Kids Week round of movies with Moana, which is the most recent of all the movies that I've reviewed, and it's also a movie that I tried watching once, and then, I don't know, for whatever reason, I never finished it, and so I'm, going all out and trying it again. Which I finished it this time, and we'll see how it goes. I'm a big fan of Disney animation. A lot of their stuff is just perfect, in my opinion, so I expected really nothing less from this, because they are nothing if not constant with how good their stuff is. But I don't know. The trailers never interested me all that much. And when I started watching that first time, I was like, maybe another time. So nothing really stuck with me to keep watching the first time, so what about the second time? Well, before I get into that, I just want to say, whoever's listening for the first time, hello, thank you for listening, and there's always a subscribe button somewhere, and a comment button, so make sure you shout out to me, and I will get back to you whenever I can. So, let's talk about Moana. Now let's take a look at what IMDb says for it. It says, in ancient Polynesia, when a terrible curse incurred by the demigod Maui reaches an impetuous chieftain's daughter island, she answers the ocean's call to seek out the demigod to set things right. Okay. I think more or less that is what it's about. In my mind, that's really weird. Like, I'm trying to think of, just by that plot, that written out plot, how much kids are actually going to understand that, because, it's really, really foreign almost. So, anyways, the IMDb rated it 7.7 out of 10 at this current time when I'm looking at it. I will say that my rating for it is lower, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how much lower it is. So to get into it, let's go ahead and talk about the first category of people score. The people score is split up into 5 subcategories, as usual. Those range from acting to characters to casting, how important they are, and what's their chemistry. Alright, so first off, acting. To be completely fair and honest, I believe they did a good job with the acting. I was actually surprised because I didn't actually expect the acting to be all that great. Because I know it is Disney, but it is also focusing a lot on the visual aspect of it. It's focusing a lot on the song aspect of it. So when you have those two things kind of going in correlation, you don't really expect the acting to be good because it doesn't need to be when you really think about it. But in my opinion, I believe the acting was good, and I can't say much more than to give 2 out of 2 stars for there because they did what they had to do. Next up is the characters, a subcategory of characters. How are the characters? Are they memorable or not? Well, in most visually impressive like Disney animated films, they are usually really good at making characters, and that's true again here for Moana. The character of Moana itself is pretty memorable, and Maui, of course, and then her grandmother, her father, and the list keeps kind of going on from there. I don't want to give too much away about it because it doesn't really tell much about it during the trailers. But the characters are all pretty impressively memorable, I would say, and diverse. They all kind of serve their purpose, which brings me into the importance, but hold on a second. Characters, 2 out of 2 stars for that. The importance, like I said before, do they all serve a purpose? Do they all add to the plot? Yes. Mona is there trying to seek out Maui. Maui has a reason for existence as well, and what he's trying to do, which is a little bit of a coward's life, but he needs to be, he needs to be told once again what to do in his life because it's important. Her father is kind of like Maui a little bit because he's living a little bit of a coward's life. But he is a good father, and Maui is a good god, I guess. Grandma is very important to the progression of the story. Well, the role just kind of keeps on going from there. But yes, they all have importance to being there. Importance is 2 out of 2 stars. I kind of skipped over casting, so let's talk about the casting. Were the people in here casted how they should be? I'm not entirely sure. I like Dwayne Johnson as much as the next guy. I mean, I think he's a great actor. Not sure if, this was the right role for him or not. I mean, I'm trying to think if anybody else could fill it. It's hard to say because, I mean, his voice is so iconic. So it's not like I'm going to think back years from now and not remember him for being in the movie. So I can't really, I don't know. The main girl, Ali Cravalho, I don't even know how to say her name. She's good. She's really good. I don't know if anybody else could play her, especially because, I don't know. She's like, this is like her first movie, and she did good in it, but I can't say with a good conscience anybody else could have played Mona just fine. So I'm going to say for the casting, I'm going to say 1 out of 2, just because I don't have that feeling of certainty that these were the actors for the job. So casting 1 out of 2. Chemistry is the last in the people category. Chemistry is perfect. Mona with her father is great. Mona with Maui is great. Maui with like the just the colors of the wind, I should say. Now, the nature, like the ocean and the creatures of destruction and things like that. He does have a good chemistry with pretty much everything that he runs into, so I'm going to say 2 out of 2 for that as well. That actually makes the people score pretty high. That's 9 out of 10 possible stars for the people. But that's usual for Disney. Disney's pretty good at characters, pretty good at pretty much everything that has to do with people. So I'm not super surprised, but I'm happy that it has a 9 out of 10. Next up is the writing. The writing score has 5 subcategories of its own called the dialogue, the balance, the story itself, the originality, and if it is interesting. So let's get into those. Alright, so first off, the dialogue. There's a lot of great dialogue in this movie, both by, I would say, Mona's grandmother. Some from Mona and Maui, but not a whole lot. But whenever there is a musical at hand, I consider the music in it to be a reflection of somebody's attitudes, their emotions, their true nature. And if that's not considered dialogue, I don't know what is. So I would say the dialogue is 2 out of 2. So, yay. Next up is it a balanced movie? You know, it's a weird story and a weird movie, I think, in some ways, but it's not imbalanced. It's not overconvoluted, and I think anybody who's watching can follow along pretty clearly. It's kind of like an ancient road trip, if you will, because she has to go out in the ocean to find this guy in order to solve the problem. It's a pretty clear story, and they come into obstacles along the way, which I'll get into later, but that's a normal story. So, balance, absolutely 2 out of 2 stars. How about the story? What's the internal story about? Well, it's Disney. You always know there's going to be one. And for this one, I would say that you're talking about not following society. Like, Moana was pretty much destined to follow society like her ancients and elders before her. Like, she was supposed to rule the land and blah, 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 and just be happy doing that. But the ocean, like, physically and literally calls out to her, and she needs to do something about it. Well, that's good. That's we're talking about following your passion, going against society, if that's what that means. You're talking about, I think that's probably the main one. There's also courage is in there as well for not from Mona as much as it is for Maui and her father. I think those two needed courage, and she was kind of the person to give them that courage they needed. So the story is absolutely 2 out of 2 stars. Originality, can't say I've ever seen anything like this before. I mean, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it is original, so I'm going to have to say 2 out of 2 stars. Is it interesting? For this one, I gave it 1 out of 2 stars because I didn't really consider it interesting. Remember, the first time that I tried to watch this, I didn't finish it. I can't really tell you why other than I didn't really find it interesting. And there's a reason why I don't really see it as interesting. It's not really a topic that I care to watch. It's taking place way beyond the past, which means that I can't really connect so much with the characters in this movie. Also, I'm not a huge fan, for whatever reason, of movies that take place primarily in or around water. I can't really tell you why, but I've never really liked quote-unquote water movies. So, I mean, as far as the interesting was, I really hoped it was, but for the most part, the only thing that interested me was the music, so I'm going to have to say 1 out of 2 possible stars for that. That once again brings the writing score up to another 9 out of 10 possible stars, so we're way off on a really good start. We're on 18 out of 20 possible stars. So far it's pretty good. Writing's good, the people's good. What else do we have? We're on behind the scenes now. Behind the scenes has 5 subcategories of its own, as usual. We have visuals, the directing, the editing, the advertisement, and the music. So let's get into those. Visuals. Visuals are really good. It's Disney animated movie, and those are usually top-notch with the visuals. And I'm not talking about visuals as it looks real. I mean visuals as in what they want it to look like, and it definitely pulls that off. But I will say that the water in it is extremely good. That specifically was extremely impressive. But then again, they've always been good with water. Visuals in general. The character, like the 3D character models, all memorable. The actual colors of everything, all memorable. And just the graphics alone, just completely memorable from beginning to end. 2 out of 2 stars for that, though I wasn't really expecting any less. Directing. How does it tell a story from visuals? Now, this is weird because, for the most part, I don't really understand what a director does for CGI/animated movies. It's hard. But I feel like the direction of the movie was clearly put in place by the director. I don't know how. I don't normally see that for animated films, but I did see it for Mona. I did see the direction that he was trying to convey for an audience to follow along with the story, and I have to commend him on that for 2 out of 2 stars. I don't normally say that for an animated movie, but I was at least somewhat impressed by the directing here. The editing, how can I put this? The editing, once again, there's nothing that stood out for me with the editing. I thought it was typical, average, nothing special. I gave it 1 out of 2 stars because I don't know. I feel like it could have been better there. Advertisement, I consider it as advertised. Sorry, editing was 1 out of 2 stars if I didn't say that. I think I did though. Advertisement was as advertised. They didn't have anything to hide. It was definitely a 2 out of 2 star thingamajig. Next and last subcategory of the behind the scenes was the music. How was the music? Good, memorable, catchy, just like any other Disney animated film should be. It was, whenever the movie caught my attention, it was when somebody was singing a song because it was catchy. So I will say 2 out of 2 stars for the music. That brings the behind the scenes score up to, what do you know, another 9 out of 10 possible stars, bringing us up to 27 out of 30. Pretty good, guys. We're going up again to the narrative arc score. So the narrative arc score brings us up to 5 special subcategories of the introduction, the inciting incident / crossing of the threshold, the obstacles, the climax, and the following action. I always like to say, if you're watching a movie and you feel like something's off but you can't place your finger on it, it might be the narrative arc, because nobody really thinks about those. So let's get into it. How was the introduction? Well, the introduction introduces us to Moana, the legend of Maui, the island, and basically what's going on and why she has to do what she has to do. And it's very clear about that, so that anybody watching has absolutely no complaint when it gets into the inciting incident. So the introduction is definitely a 2 out of 2 possible stars. Next up is the inciting incident. So what is the inciting incident? Well, the inciting incident is when Moana finally decides that she's a grown-up. The ocean's calling to her. That means she has to do something about it. So she gets onto a boat and she sets sail. For real. She just sets sail with her chicken and her heart of the ocean or whatnot, and she sets sail. That's definitely the inciting incident and crossing of the threshold. 2 out of 2 clear stars. Obstacles, obviously, it's like a road trip movie, so she's going to run into a bunch of stuff in the water, like evil coconuts and things like that. So, and Maui himself's kind of an obstacle. So, 2 out of 2 possible stars for obstacles. Nothing wrong there. The climax is also really impressive. Really is a head of everything else. Climax and the epiphany moment and the climax and everything perfectly clear. 2 out of 2 stars for that. Falling action, however, kind of more or less ended right after the finale. It kind of showed you a quick glimpse of what normal life is after that point, which isn't much. I will give it 1 out of 2 stars for that, which, weirdly enough, we're still going 9 out of 9 here. So 9 out of 10 possible stars for narrative arc score. That brings us up to 36 out of 40 possible stars. So far, so good. Now we're talking about the entertainment score. Now, this is probably what affects me the most. The entertainment's the hardest for me to actually give points to. So let's talk about that. We have rewatchability, we have fun, we have the impulse to buy it, the impulse to talk about, and does it suck the audience in? Okay. So, rewatchability. Do I consider this a movie that I would rewatch? I would, but not necessarily a movie that I'd go out and try to rewatch. What I mean by that is if I accidentally stumble across it one day at the store or on TV or something, I might rent it or I might check it out while it's playing on TV or something. So this is more of a maybe case. I might check it out if I see it, but I'm not going to try and go look for it unless, say, my kid specifically wants to see it. So for that, I'll have to say 1 out of 2 possible stars for rewatchability. Next one, is it fun? I would say the music is definitely fun, and that this almost got me 2 out of 2 possible stars, but I think a lot of the movie could have been better at the same time in this specific subcategory. So I think I have to say 1 out of 2 possible stars there as well. I don't really have an impulse to buy it. Like I said before, I might rewatch it. So impulse to buy is 0 out of 2 stars. And the impulse to talk about it, not really. Like, this isn't really a discussion-worthy topic. After watching it, I don't have the impulse or urge to go say, oh man, you have to see this movie because I need to talk about it with you. I don't get that with this, so I'm going to have to say 0 out of 2 stars as well. Does it suck the audience in? Yes and no. Once again, it has to do with the music. The music's really good. There are action-y moments here and there that are pretty good that suck you in, but for the most part, the rest of it can be seen as slightly boring, and it doesn't suck you in throughout the whole movie. So for this one, I would say 1 out of 2 possible stars. That brings the entertainment score only up to 3 out of possible 10 stars. So that's where most of the score kind of limits itself, is the entertainment score. Because last time we were at 36, and now we're at 39 out of 50. So, I mean, it's okay, you know what I mean? But now we're going to be talking about the specialty categories, the ones that I wrote before I saw the movie. And just like all of the kids movies that I saw, most of them are pretty similar in what I asked. First one was, what's the what's the level of, is it more of a family movie? Is it more of a kids movie? Is it somewhere in between? Or is it just like a kids movie that parents won't really enjoy? For this one, I said 5 out of 10 possible stars because I wouldn't consider this a movie that most adults can enjoy with their kids. I consider it a movie that's more geared towards kids. And that's just because the adults might appreciate the music, like I've been saying throughout this review. But the story and the characters, like, they might think is cute, but not incredible as kids might feel. So I gave it 5 out of 10 possible stars. What about the moral of the story? Like I said, the moral of the story has to do with being courageous and, not listening to society or whatever. But it's not clear. It's not as clear as other Disney movies, I would say. It's clear for adults, I think, to catch. But not so much with kids, which I think is important for kids to understand these things when they're watching these movies. So I would say 5 out of 10 stars for the moral of the story. Next up is the Liam test. The Liam test is basically, how does it fare for kids today? How does it work with kids? And I have a kid, so I get to answer this question. I sat my kid down and watched the movie with him, and he got up and he walked away, which means he wasn't interested. And a lot of these movies that I reviewed, even 101 Dalmatians, he sat and watched the entire thing through. Even Monsters and Aliens, he watched more than he did with this. He wasn't really feeling Moana. I mean, that's fine. Maybe it's a little, quote-unquote, highbrow for him because he's just about 2 years old. I mean, maybe he needs to be older to appreciate more. But the Liam test, for the most part, got a 5 out of 10 because he sat for a little bit, but kind of gave up later on. How about Disney filmography? With this category, I consider it, like, how does it fit well in the rest of the filmography? You got a poster. Imagine you have a poster of the Disney animated films that are out right now. Would you consider putting this in with the rest of the movies? I would say yes. I think this fits very well in with the rest of the Disney animated films. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Disney animated film, but it fits in with the rest, so I would say 10 out of 10 there. How about, is it halfway decent? I would say 10 out of 10 for that one as well, because it is halfway decent. It's doing exactly what it wants to do. Even if I don't consider it something that I appreciate or find super interesting, I do believe they did what they sought to do, and I have to commend them for that and give them 10 out of 10 possible stars. That's what it is. It's halfway decent. So the specialty categories got 35 out of 50, which once again is pretty similar to what the original categories got for 39 out of 50. So they got 39, that got 35. That brings the total score for Moana to be 74%. 74 out of 100 possible stars. So you heard it from me. I told you what each and every star represents for Moana. That actually wraps up the Kids Week. So just to recap, we watched Peter Pan, we watched 101 Dalmatians, we watched Monsters vs. Aliens, and we watched this, Moana, as well as talking about kids' TV shows on Tuesday. So that was Kids Week. That was pretty cool. Next week we're going to have another week of special movies to review. So if you want to follow along, I'll tell you what those movies are right now. So next week is Wife's Choice. They are movies that my wife picked out for me to watch, whether I wanted to or not. And those are, and I count here, on Monday, I will be talking about Tuck Everlasting, which my wife picked out first. On Tuesday, it will also be Wife's Choice for TV Tuesday. She will hopefully, she said she would, hopefully be joining me for TV Tuesday to talk about why her choices for that TV shows were her choices. I think she's going to be talking about 20 different TV shows that impacted her in some way or another. So, Wife's Choice TV Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about a really hard-to-find movie called Antitrust. Thankfully, I did find it, and we watched that together. We're going to talk about Antitrust on Wednesday, so you look that up if you want to. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about The Chum Scrubber, which is another kind of hard movie to find as well. So look that up, see it if you want to compare your ratings. On Friday, and me and her have to watch this weekend because I still haven't seen it, we're going to be watching The Bumblebee Flies Anyway, which is quite possibly the hardest of the bunch to actually find. But if you're interested, I think they have it posted somewhere on YouTube. But you really have to search for it. She really likes those hard-to-find movies. And maybe she'll tell us why on Tuesday. I'm not sure. She's not a sheep, you know. She doesn't follow the sheep and watching the biggest blockbusters out there and what everybody's talking about these days. She likes to go around and watch the lesser known stuff, which is cool too. So we're going to talk about those 5, which again were Tuck Everlasting, Wife's Choice TV Tuesday, Antitrust on Wednesday, Chum Scrubber on Thursday, and The Bumblebee Flies Anyway on Friday. So look out for those next week for Wife's Choice. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so next week we have Wife's Choice, as you well know. But in the meantime, you can email me at dave@daveexamensmovies.com if you have any ideas for some themes for a week, or if you want me to review a specific movie sometime, I can do that too. Ask me questions, give me suggestions, all you want. You can comment on these podcasts, you can subscribe to these podcasts. I'm found everywhere from iTunes to Google Play to Stitcher to SoundCloud. I'm everywhere, don't worry about it. And you can also find me on daveexamensmovies.com. And I'm currently in the process of backing all of these up onto archive.org so I don't lose anything when I run out of space. So you can find me on all those places, and I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good weekend. I know I will as well. Have a good Easter. And I'll see you guys again bright and early, or on noon, or whatever it is, on Monday with Tuck Everlasting. See you guys later. And peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the number one critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We think you're